time because we have quite a lot of people in digital and creative services. So I know a lot of people are really keen to hear what you have to say. So over to you, Ryan.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, thank you for all coming today. So I'll start. As Paul introduced, my name's Ryan T. Williams. My middle name's Thomas. So I've recently started to incorporate the T into my personal brand because I think it sounds a bit like Michael J. Fox. You know, it's a little bit, because apparently David Williams changed his name from Williams because the name was too bland. So I was on the back foot with being Ryan Williams, so I've banged the T in there for no reason. So I'm going to talk about how I scaled my social media agency from zero essentially to a multi-seven-figure exit, or as I like to call it, IT geek to entrepreneur. So yeah. So speaking of Hollywood celebrities, you may well have seen me in films, and it's the worst comparison that I get. My wife can't see it, but a few of my friends are blue in the face that I look like this guy. But of all people, Matt Damon. Whether people say it or not, I'm not too sure, but this next picture kind of seems to make up people's minds. So even if I kind of do that, I haven't got a short top on, but I've even got the same tattoo, so yeah. Yeah. So I thought I'd run you through how it all started. So as I mentioned before, I left school, went into an IT apprenticeship. I was happily fixing computers, breaking computers in an office, 18, 19, kind of just enjoying it. I opted against university. Instead, I was a hands-on, I was doer. Not much of a writer. I think that's where the social media comes in later on, because there was so much tinkering and so much playing with. So yeah, this was me, fresh-faced. But this job was actually a really, really fascinating job. It took me to South Africa. The story behind that was the company that I worked for were an events-based agency. So they said to me one day, "Oh, do you mind going out to South Africa to support the systems for the FIFA World Cup?" And I'm a massive football fan, and I was 18. I was like, "Yeah, okay." So probably one of the last times I wore a suit, but yeah, I think it's good for the pictures. So that was on again with the 2010 South Africa World Cup. But so yeah, the date says itself. I was absolutely loving that job. However, at the same time, I met my wife, my future wife, should I say. I have to say she's the love of my life. I say that, she gives me a whack. So I'm still with her today, thankfully. So I got married, did the usual, had my first child. So the job that I was enjoying, they wanted me to go to Brazil for 8 or 9 weeks. And at this point, as you can see, I had priorities at home. So as much as it was a great dream job, my mates couldn't believe I was giving it up. It was, yeah, my priorities had changed and I wanted to be at home a little bit more. So I did the usual then. I left that job. I got somewhere closer to home so I could be around. Ended up being an absolute disaster. It's one of those jobs it's not on your CV. It's not on your LinkedIn. Didn't exist. 6 months disaster, walked out. Worked to another place. So I had about a year still within the IT industry, floating around, not particularly enjoying it. Then I actually stumbled across a job at Manchester Metropolitan University in the server team. So I was enjoying that, but then there was a third love of my life appearing at that moment, and it was Twitter, which we all know now is X, but it'll always be Twitter to me. So yeah, the other bird in my life, I like to say. And then kind of where I go from here is I always say, like, one tweet is all it takes. And from that is what I mean. I was up late with my daughter one night, and I was just playing with these Twitter accounts, and it was when it was a brand new platform, so everyone was following everything, and you were having like 100, 200 followed accounts. And it was just a buzz, and I really started to enjoy the engagement. And at this point, they were like sport accounts, parody accounts. They weren't me, but they were like humorous within the football industry. So I thought I'd use a classic meme that was where I was at in my career at that point. There was me. I was having my head turned by Twitter, and that was my well-paid IT job, looking at me like, "Come on, are you doing me?" But I was just distracted all day long. So going back to, this was around 2013 because of the birth of my first daughter. I was up late one night with her because she was a baby and they didn't sleep. And then this was flicking through. I even sound old now. It was in the days before Netflix where you couldn't just watch box sets on end, so you had to kind of flick through Sky to find what was on. Found something that was talking about the classic years of the Premier League, and it popped up a really cool headline about Alan Shearer at the time. Sorry if you're not into football, I'll try and give best context I can. Alan Shearer broke the transfer record for £15 million, which, for context now, it's 100 million now, the transfer record. So I saw that and I was like, that's cool. Imagine like if Twitter existed in the 90s, what these headlines would look like. So I actually found the original newspaper article. And I started to follow a page of Sky Sports News, but I changed it. Again, I still don't particularly know where the idea came from, but I changed it to Slow Sports News because it was just a very subtle change. And I started to post old headlines like they were happening there and then. So this was the example of one of the first ones. So it was, you can see the date, August 16, 2013, and it was Alan Shearer have signed for a world record 15 million. You say 153 people retweeted it, 89 liked it. I don't know if people still use Twitter these days, but that's the other way around now. No one ever retweets, everyone likes everything, but it's a kind of sign of the times. So, but that was the account, it just skyrocketed. People loved it, and what they loved about it, they were tagging their friends, they were winding people up, and people were genuinely falling for, maybe not that one because it was 15 years out of date, but I was doing more subtle ones that were very focused on modern day football, but 6-7 months old, so people thought players had signed a new contract or they'd left the club. But where that went from there is it got shot up to about 90,000 followers. So I'm still working in my IT job at this time, but in my right hand, I had the equivalent of a full Wembley Stadium following me, or following my account. And yeah, again, I was still doing my 9-to-5 IT job, doing this at evenings and weekends, and a little bit during the day, but yeah, my boss didn't know. So then, but at the time, I'm sure you all have heard of Stephen Bartlett, of his Dragons Den. He was building his company at the time called Social Chain, and they were ahead of the game with accounts like mine. They were approaching account owners like us, asking us to work for them. They were buying the account and working them. They were building their network, building. And they offered me a job. Him and Dominic McGregor, his business partner. I declined because even at that time I was like, there's no career in social media. I can't make money from tweeting. I've got my comfy job with my pension, my good working hours, everything. No, I thought they were mad. Well, yeah. I don't think he's mad now. He's a dragon, but so I go like, what could have been? So that was Stephen Bartlett in his social media social chain days, and I was googling this picture and I found it because I always remember the hat he wore back then. But I thought, what could have been that? That may well could have been me sat behind him, just a number. I may well have fell into the abyss, but for that time, the times didn't align, so I carried on doing what I was doing. Then I had what was called the breakthrough. And again, apologies again, this is still within the football genre, but at the time, Liverpool manager Brendan Rodgers was a revered character. He was compared to Ricky Gervais's character David Brent from The Office. So people were making him a joke. So I made an account called Deluded Brendan, and it was just basically tweeting lots of things that were delusions of grandeur, and then he would come out and say similar things in his interview. And I hit the nail on the head with it, and I started tweeting things like this, and it shot up to about 300,000 followers, and you can imagine the growth that was happening over the months there, and it was absolutely flying. And I got a message at the time from something called the Football Blogging Awards, and they said, we've nominated your account for the best account in social, would you come to the awards ceremony? And I had been to one of these before, and there's hundreds there, and I went, well, no, because it was a parody account, it wasn't me. It was a joke. No one knew I kind of run it. None of my colleagues knew. None of my friends really knew. So I just said, no, thank you, but no thanks. They replied back going, no, we'd really like you to come. Wink, wink. In other words, I'd won the award. You know, that's how they get the celebrities to these. They don't turn up unless there is. So I was like, right, well, okay, it's time to kind of step to the forefront. So I went and I thought, I'll take a mask because then if people do film me, they won't know. So I genuinely bought this mask. I brought it here today. It's a slightly different one because I couldn't find the original, but yeah, so my idea was, you can imagine how silly it was, I was going to go to an award ceremony and go up for the award like that, as if no one would recognise who I was. But however, I sat down to a footballer called Stan Collymore, well, an ex-footballer. And if there was 100 people in a room, you'd hear Stan Collymore. He is the noisiest man on the planet. And I sits down and he's like, I'm not going to do his terrible Brummie accent, but... And he looked at my name card and he was like, oh, that's Deluded Brendan. And then, so he just put his arm around me. He was like, oh, it's Deluded Brendan. Starts telling everyone. And I'm like, this anonymous, it's not really going very well. This is it. Obviously, I didn't have the mask on. And on Twitter, he has around 900,000 followers now. He had about 700,000 at the time. So what does he do? He posted a selfie of us to over 700,000 Twitter followers. well, and tagged Deluded Brendan. Well, my phone exploded. My friends found out. My work colleagues found out. That was it. The mask had slipped, so to speak. But the great thing was, I ended up winning that night. And as you can see, I took the mask on stage just for the picture. But it was a great night. But at this point, the mask had slipped. Like, people knew what I was doing. I couldn't be sat in work anymore without my boss walking around, and like the minimising trick didn't work anymore because everybody knew what I was doing. So I was being torn now, like, do I carry on tweeting? Because I knew I was going to get busted. But I had over like 500,000 followers now with that account and that. So I felt like, I was thinking like Elton John did at Glastonbury. Like, all these people, like, I was in control. At these events though, I met my future business partners, which was great. And the way Twitter was at the time, I call it the Twitter mafia. And what I mean by that was, say there was 100 Twitter accounts, and I talked about your social chains. I'm sure you've heard of Lad Bible, companies like that. They were all massively running Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts. But you'd start following them, and you'd realise 10 or 12 accounts were owned by the same people. So say there was 100 accounts, there was only about 10 owners. And that's where it became a little bit of a mafia. We were in a group chat, trading, like, you'd do a thing back then, retweeting, so you'd grow each other. Everybody knew each other, but then you had people breaking off. Lad Bible had been created, Social Chain had been created, Unilad had been created. And there was two other business partners in there. A guy called Matt, he ran an account, he had over 1 million followers on his Twitter accounts, and another guy called Andrew. And we got talking, and we realised that combined we had 2 million followers. So this was like, we need to do something with this. And these guys were already freelancing within the betting industry. They'd left university, but I was still on the tram every single day, doing my IT job as well as trying to keep up with tweeting and talking to these guys. So it got to a kind of a tipping point where I needed to make the biggest decision of my life. We'd got together, me, Matt and Andrew, and if I wanted to make a proper go of this, I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. I had a young family, a wife, my full-time job, as well as tweeting all night long. My wife thought I was cheating on her half the time because I just constantly stuck to my phone. I was like, no, I'm working, honestly. And it was a side business, what I would call a side business at that point. I set myself up as a little limited company because I was being paid by betting companies. They'd say £200-300 to tweet this link at weekends. So it was earning a nice little side business, but it was never viable enough to become a career at that point until I met these two other guys. So I made the decision. I remember sitting my dad down going, you know, this IT career I've been working on really well, getting quite senior in it now. Yeah, I'm quitting. I don't want to do it anymore. Oh, right, what are you doing? I'm going to launch a Twitter or a social media business. Still to this day, my dad doesn't understand what I do. So you can imagine what it was like back then, telling my nan, telling my family. The people thought I was crazy, even down to my friends. But that meant one thing. It was no more trams. That was great. I got up that first morning. Now what? I dropped my kid off at school or at nursery. I sat in my freezing cold garage and it hit me. I've got to do something now. I've got to make sure I get paid. Like I wasn't getting my steady salary anymore. My pension had gone. Wasn't getting my holidays. It was great, but also at the same time really scary. So what we did, we got our heads together because, as I mentioned before, it was all in the football field, our accounts, a lot based around nostalgia, not on breaking news. But we realised football or sport was one niche, but it was never going to be able to create the masses. Because like Lad Bible was generic, Unilad was generic. When I say generic, I don't mean boring. I mean all-encompassing. You can post absolutely anything on there: football, entertainment, business, breaking news. So we got our heads together, and it was like, well, we need to create something similar. So we created an account called It's Gone Viral. And that was a term at the time that was, oh, have you seen this video? Yeah, it's gone viral. Oh, such a body's gone viral. And it was quite a buzzword. And again, that was a bit like when I created Deluded Brendan and things like that. It just clicked. We started to create, look now, there are awful crass memes. But social media was in a space at the time where these pictures, they're still kind of going now, but they were really popular. So that was stuff, again, awful clothes we wore in the 90s, but you won't believe the engagement that would get because thousands of people would start commenting, tagging their friends that, oh, do you remember when I had this? People would share it, they'd like it. And the growth flew in, and this page exploded. We had like 1 million followers after a few months, and it headed on to 2 million. And the way we were monetizing that at the time was the usual, you know, like BuzzFeed and websites like that. The clickbait essentially is the crass word for it. So you wouldn't believe this car that Wayne Rooney's driving, and it's click behind it. So, and then you make the money from the Google adverts. So we were monetizing obviously to a large crowd with that. It was earning us well. But we learned as a startup and fast, like if it could go wrong in that first year or so, it really did. We were just earning money nicely as a startup. We had a photographer got in touch. Oh, you know this website you're running? You've done 10 articles and I own 10 of them pictures. Here's a £15,000 invoice. Oh, like, what's copyright? Oh, I didn't know these people own these photographs. So we had to, he was threatening us with court. So that was a massive chunk of the things we were earning. That took a big hit. We had another one where we got scammed. We naively tried to buy a Facebook page. Instead, if people don't know, you're not legally allowed to buy a Facebook page unless you're buying the business. So this guy sold us this Facebook page for £5,000, transferred it over to us. It was a blank page. And by the letter of the law, the title was what they bought, but by the letter of the law, we didn't have a leg to stand on because we weren't legally allowed to buy the page, and he knew this. Luckily, we got in touch with NatWest Fraud Department, and they triggered a recall. And if he'd have appealed it, I didn't want it to know. Luckily, we weren't that clever. But so they were kind of stressful times because for them first 12 months of the business, all the money initially was to pay me because that was one of the agreements of me stepping back from my IT job. I need first dibs of this money to pay my mortgage, to pay my child's nursery, to pay everything. So as fun as it was working on social media all day long, it was some really stressful times. Amongst that, we lost our personal Facebooks because we were posting things we shouldn't. Facebook remove it, they ban your account, so we lost pictures, videos, lost everything. So yeah, at times you were thinking, why have I done this? This is jumping into the fire. And then my second child come along, that's Mia. So I was obviously father of two with a startup business. My house suddenly, a 3-bedroom house suddenly felt like a 1-bedroom flat when you've got a baby running around, you've got a toddler running around. So it was time for me to escape. And by that, what I mean is, I didn't run away, but I went and we got with a 3-man office over in Rochdale. And it was the typical first startup office, yellow walls, skanky tables, the lot. My dad come in, helped me paint it. It was great. But I absolutely loved that office. So that was the first one. That was she's my eldest now. She's my eldest, should I say. She's 10 now. That was our very first It's Gone Viral logo. That was at Christmas. That was my youngest, Mia. But looking back now, it was a really basic logo someone designed for us. But it was brilliant. Like, I loved it. I had an office. I was running my own business. I had an office. It was just living the dream. And then within there, as the website was getting nice success, I was getting more clicks once we sorted out the original problems. So it allowed us to kind of hire a couple of people to write. We wanted to post more content because the plan was to always keep growing these pages to keep, the bigger you get, the more you can monetize. Originally, we thought about brand deals and working with companies because if we've got a crowd of like 3-4 million, great, which brand wouldn't want to advertise on there? But that takes a big pivot in a minute. But so within this complex in Rochdale, we then got a bigger room, and I had to do what all cool bosses do to get the ping pong table, didn't we? It was a social media company, beer fridge, ping pong table, trying to be Google essentially. But it was good times. But looking back now, it all seems just a little bit cliched. But yeah, it's fun. But there was one massive thing that was going on social media at the time, and it was creating food videos. And the food videos were anything that was kind of different or extreme. So can you eat these 20 Big Macs? And then this one we come up with, it was the KFC gravy fountain. We got a chocolate fountain and we put the KFC gravy in it. And that was the outtakes for that. Didn't make this thing. When we originally did it, we had to thin that gravy out because if you've had KFC gravy, it's really thick. We initially did it, we blew the fuse in the whole of the office complex. The office manager comes running in going, "What are you doing?" We're like, KFC gravy fountain, obviously, and in this room there was like accountants in there. They just didn't know what we were doing, just breaking things. So it was good, but you're making things like the KFC gravy fountain, the Greg's platter, the this, the lot, and then so what kind of came apparent, we had to eat it afterwards. We weren't going to bin it. So what came around there was Fat Ryan appeared, essentially. So looking back at the pictures now, I kind of let myself really go. And there was, at this point, I was looking like Mark from The Chase rather than Matt Damon. So it's kind of looking back now. But then what I mentioned before, we were, the moment happened that we were all waiting for. We were growing these social media pages. It's Gone Viral was about 4 or 5 million in size. We'd made like a couple of sub-gaming pages. We'd made a pet page. We'd made like a makeup page. So we were monetizing with the website, but what we'd started to see in America and see in England was the advertisements that you initially saw on YouTube in videos, before videos, the annoying things where you have to skip ads, they were appearing on Facebook feeds. And we were like, well, we've got this massive, massive Facebook estate. If that happens to us, we're going places. And then we noticed a couple of the American pages, then it happened to Lad Bible and Unilad, and we always say we were always a few months behind because we was a little bit smaller. And then it happened, we woke up, I call it the kaboom moment. We woke up to a message from Facebook, you are now eligible to monetize your pages. Well, that was it. We went from probably at that point around £200,000 a year, and I'm not kidding, it went to 2 million a year from that moment, because suddenly we had this Facebook estate of 5-6 million followers and we were monetizing it. And what it was around like like $10 for every 1,000 views. So you can imagine, as if you crunch the maths to that, we were getting like $400 or $500 a video. And that allowed us to really scale up at that point, because we had this really steady income. We knew we had these video editors that if they're producing us 3 videos and then videos earn 3,000-4,000 each, well, you can get 3 more video editors to make 9 more videos. So we scaled up, and this actually allowed us, I call it, a time for a promotion to the big league. So we were still in Rochdale at that point, but we were hitting a barrier with the staff. There was people who didn't want to travel out to Rochdale. The existing staff, most of them lived in Manchester. They were getting into the office at 10:30. They were late, but the trains were shocking. So even though it kind of cost more to go into Manchester, the overheads were higher, it meant we had access to better talent, and we were actually getting more out of our existing staff. So this was our shiny Manchester offices. I think that was around Christmas time again, but that was in actually Beehive Mill in Ancoats. I don't know if people know it. It used to be the old Sankey's nightclub. So again, it was just massive. Felt like the cool company. So that was when we was all decorated out. And what had actually happened at that point is, from where we were in a space where there was Lad Bible was down the road. You had Unilad. They were in the same building as Lad Bible. And then you had Social Chain, which was Dominic McGregor and Stephen Bartlett's company. Then you had Little Old Us. It's Gone Viral. And what we kind of called ourselves at that point was the Disruptors. I've hacked up the Expendables poster, but I called ourselves the Disruptors. And that was Matt, who I had on the picture before, but this was us. We were the 3 co-founders of this. So that was Matt. Matt was from Wolverhampton. He was like the most chilled out man you're going to get. If the house was on fire, he'd be the one telling you, it's all right, we've got insurance, kind of thing. He just never panics, which was great in the crisis times. Then you had Andrew, who was like your laser focused, what I call like the Mark Zuckerberg kind of guy. Just was focused, allowed us to really go on our strategy. And I call somewhere in between. So I think as a board, we were a really nice mix, which it's something to take away is, if you are going into business with someone, make sure you get on with them, or make sure your skills complement each other, because you work with each other a lot. So it's worth looking into that more. I didn't particularly do that. It happened without realising, but it's the advice I give now, that it was great. But it was obviously why we clicked, really. If we all didn't get on, I don't think we'd ever would have started a business together. So, but then sadly, it was the moment that nobody was ready for, and that was getting towards 2020, which I'm all sure was the pandemic. So we were in Manchester, we just moved in, we were sailing, things were absolutely banging. It was the January, February, when the first few musings were coming about COVID from Italy and things like that. And people thought it was a joke. It was like, oh, it's the new swine flu, it's the new Ebola, it'll soon go. So we were making jokes about it. And this was me in this video, because we got the idea, someone was on a tram, sent a picture and said, I've just seen someone in a hazmat suit on the tram. with a mask on, that worried about this COVID, where, you know, people didn't know what it was. So we were like, oh, that's a good idea for a video. So and this was actually me in the suit here. So we did sat in a hazmat suit in the middle of the office. But this was kind of, I put this concept in to show how we were taking the mickey out of the pandemic. We thought it was a joke, like a lot of people did. We didn't think it was serious, just laughing it off. So I think it pans out in a minute here. Yeah, I was Googling hand sanitizer, weren't wasting my days. Don't know why I thought I could take a drink through the mask, but it did, yeah. Yeah, so that was the pandemic starting, and again we were making these meetings. But not long after this happened, I had a phone call from my wife, and it was the closing Lexi, our eldest daughter, the closing of school. The head teacher just said the closing it till after Easter, which was about 2 weeks and then 2 weeks again, because of this pandemic. And we were like, oh my word. And then the hours went by and they all broke about that Boris was going to be doing his big speech, and so the word got out, it got leaked in it that we were having to be sent home. And we were in a space where we were working there in the company that everyone had the all-in-one iMacs, so the big editing suites. And so we had an emergency meeting. Well, how's everyone going to work from home? Because we didn't really have the laptops or the MacBooks at this point, and we couldn't quickly order them at that time. So we soon realised that people were going to have to go home, and we thought, well, we'll keep as business as usual, because working in social media, they can do it remotely. Just the office was obviously just for idea sharing. So we ordered like 20, 30 taxis, because we said to them, right, take your iMacs home. They're like, well, we can't be sat on the tram with this. I can't be getting on the bus with this. I can't walk down Great Ancoat Street with this. So it's like, right, we'll order the taxi. So all the Ubers turned up, and there was about 20 members of staff walking out with their iMacs, all into these Ubers, all getting in. And I remember the taxi drivers like looking, what the hell's going on? They thought we'd robbed the place or something. It was crazy, but it was just like, I look back and think of the weird times. And then people got home, and then a lot of them like lived in one-bedroom flats in Manchester. So they were sending us pictures of being in bed with these massive iMacs at the bottom, and they would just lay there typing away and trying to edit. It was crazy. And then the picture that everybody, I'm sure, is etched in everyone's brain when it was, you must stay at home. And it was like, right, this is serious now. And what actually hit us with that, we actually lost 70% of our income overnight because of the pandemic. And what happened was, people may or may not know, the first thing in a crisis for a company is people stop spending money on advertising. And our model was, Facebook put adverts on our page. So the minute people stopped investing in adverts, they could no longer output them to our pages. So essentially we woke up and Facebook, we had this message where we had that big celebration on the other slide of, you're now eligible to monetize your page. Now it was, you're no longer eligible. And we were in a model where 70% of our income was from these Facebook pages. And then, so it was like the old little bit, I think it was just computer says no. It was like proper head scratching moments. So we had like an emergency board meeting. And at this point, we'd undertaken work on our house in the January, having it extended. So half our house was a building site, which wasn't ideal when the pandemic hit. So my house had got even smaller, as I kind of mentioned before, with 2 kids running around. They were at home. So I had this emergency board meeting on my wife's dressing table with her dressing pink lights around me, just like a lot of people had to make during the pandemic. And we were just discussing what we were going to do. So we got in touch with Facebook saying, what do you mean we're not eligible? Because what Facebook did is they said, oh, your videos aren't unique enough, that they're too similar to other people's. They were hiding behind the fact they'd run out of money, but they made an excuse. So we went through everything that they said. They sent massive help guides, and in a nutshell, what it was is we had to edit our videos. So we got our video editors to change. We had to hire a freelance commentator, essentially, who would comment annoyingly over the videos, and she'd pop up at the end and say, did you enjoy that video? What do you think about this? And people in the comments hated it. Who's this person on this video? Why is it there? But what it was doing was ticking a box for Facebook. And I say luckily, we did work hard. Thankfully, I should say that 8 weeks later, the advertising came back up after we jumped through Facebook's hoops. But what actually came of that is because we stayed business as usual, we stayed outputting all the same amount of content, the pages grew Because during the pandemic, the world and his wife became a video creator, and everybody was just hooked online to creating content. So our pages actually got bigger. Whilst we weren't monetizing them, we kept putting the same amount of content out and all the relevant lockdown stuff. We even had one video go viral of someone, they were in the garden filming, they moved the garden fence so that him and the neighbour could play ping pong during the nice summer days. And the Jimmy Kimmel show featured it. That's how viral it kind of went. So the pages were booming, and then when the green light came back on, the advertising started to kick back in, it allowed us to, the monetization was growing even better. So at this point, what we decided was, It's Gone Viral. We were called It's Gone Viral, but it was one of about 20 pages that we ran. We were running client socials, we were licensing videos, like I say, we're sending them to things like the Jimmy Kimmel show, which meant the end user could make money. We were just doing lots of different things. So it was what we said, it was time to grow up, as in It's Gone Viral didn't really cover what we were doing at that point, and we had sales teams in trying to sell our brand, and they were ringing people saying, I'm from It's Gone Viral Limited. They were having a lot of doors shut in their faces because it didn't really sound like a proper company. It sounded spammy almost. So we worked with a branding agency, and we rebranded to it's now called Comey Group. So again, we were still business as is, but as it says there, we make social simple. And it was just allowed us to have a company name then that really produced our brand, and within there we could have subsets of everything that we did. So I was still overseeing massively the It's Gone Viral side and all the Facebook pages. But this, again, it allowed us to take that step to, as I mentioned, like grow up, and it attracted us like even more members of staff. And this was one of the later pictures before my exit. So as you can see, our company size at that time was getting massive. And just for the record, it's not Matt Damon. That was me. So so again, this is over the hour. I'm talking about a 10-year business journey here. So there is obviously lots to pick out in between this. So but this was like one of the last pictures, and now what I say is like the end is near. And what came from this picture was, as you can see how big it was, especially after the pandemic, I started to walk through the office and people didn't recognise me and I didn't recognise them. And it was even getting to a point where I was walking, people were freezing as if like Voldemort had just walked in or something like, and that wasn't me at all. If people know me, and people knew me before the pandemic and we grew, I'm an approachable guy, approachable boss, probably too soft at times, but I was nowhere near that Darth Vader walking through kind of thing. So when things like that started to happen, and I started to feel a little bit disconnected, and as the departments grew and my days turned from creating content to looking at spreadsheets, doing appraisals, doing board meetings, and the whole reason I started with this was to do, and that was not the side of business that I liked. And it's a story without realising that I'm speaking to a lot of people who've sold the businesses now, is sometimes your business, sounds crazy, can get too big. And that's what happened with me, really. And it was great, the success was great, but day to day I wasn't enjoying it. So we sat down as the three of us as a board. Me and Matt decided, to take the next step along, to take investment on, to really supersede, to be able to double this. If you take investment on, you either take it as a massive loan, which is collateral, or they want to take shares. So me and Matt decided, if the time came and the offer was correct, we'd fully relinquish our shares and walk away. So that's where I kind of say now the end is near. So we went to market because we had this viable product, and I got a cash offer for my shares that was big and life-changing. And so this was January of 2022. So this was my mindset at this moment. I was on the beach. I had my feet up. I was done. But again, naively, if people in the future ever go through an exit, don't sing that saying about till the fat lady sings, don't celebrate till it's over. Because this initial investor who gave us everything, signed terms, everything, the Ukraine war happened and he was a private investor and his shares took a big hit. So we had a phone call. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull out of this deal. But by this time, a couple of months had gone by, and as I joked about, it's not actually me, by the way. I wish it was. People, as I had my feet up, so I hadn't done anything in the business for about 8 weeks, and we'd grown again in that stage. So I got to a point where I was with my own business. I was on the outside looking in. That's what I kind of say. And I couldn't find an appropriate picture for that, so I took one myself. So that was literally what I felt like with my own business. Like, there was my business. there was glass all around it, and I'm there just looking in. So I was in a really horrible grey area. And so they were really weird times, because the more established members of staff realised something was going on, the fact that I'd basically disappeared, but I'd pop up for the odd meeting, the odd message. So, but then it carried on through. So after that private investor pulled out, we went to market. We went to a brokerage service where we ended up selling to a company called the British Growth Fund, which are a government-based investment fund. So the model was me and Matt stepped away. Andrew, one of the original co-founders, has stayed on with the investment. And then there's another guy come in who was his friend who's non-exec. So I remember the day very well. It was 31st of October, 2022. It was actually Halloween, so very stressful day. The deal had gone through. I was kind of celebrating. The kids walked in and went, "Can we go trick-or-treating now?" And it was like, I think I already looked like that zombie anyway, so it was a good night to be looked nice and pale. So yeah, it was a horrible rainy night, and I just sold my business for millions. And I'm there walking through a really wet estate. Kind of just, I wasn't present, I wasn't in the moment, because I don't know what the hell had just happened. So got home to a nice bottle of Prosecco, and then that was 31st. So then on the 1st of November, it's like, it's all over, and it's back to that very other slide I showed, like, now what? But again, and what became apparent from it is we spent years building the business, but it was like, who the heck am I now? This business was massive, the pages were massive, but people didn't know who I was. I naively thought, oh, I'm going to be the new Stephen Bartlett. Dragon's Den are going to be on the phone asking me to sit next to him. And it soon became apparent nobody knew who I was, because I'd exited the business so quietly and I'd never done any of this while the business was still active. So that's another little tip I like to give. If you do have a successful business and you're looking to exit and you want to carry on as you, if you get chance before you even sell a business, start on the personal branding trail, start getting yourself out there, start filming your videos on Instagram and TikTok as you, because no one can ever take your personal brand away from you. So then from that, I did my first business breakfast, which was at a local youth centre in Oldham. I went through my story, because I was kind of didn't think people would be interested, but it went really down well. I had some really nice feedback from it. So, and then from that, I got invited to Barclays Bank. Obviously, I bank with them now with quite a large sum of money. So they invited me to an event to talk about that. And I kind of find out I was really enjoying it, enjoying telling my story. And as I said, it was like a 10-year career summed up in like 45 minutes. But there's lots of different things that can be pulled out of it. I could talk for hours about the startup, about the scale-up, about building the company culture. I could talk about the exit. And for this last 18 months, the post-exit's been a new story in itself, because there's been struggles there for me to find out who I am and what I'm doing again. So I'm kind of getting there now, but there's so many different subjects to talk about. I've been doing some mentoring with a young lad at my local sixth form. Done a couple of business coaching sessions with people, because I'm quite passionate about helping people get into business, because what people think traditionally entrepreneur is what they teach at school level. It's nothing like that whatsoever. So I'm really passionate about that. So my long-term plans, I want to help young people into business from like an academy level, maybe once because like you get Peter Jones, the Dragon, he's got an academy, and I just love to do stuff like that, because I look back to my sixth form days and I hated business studies. Absolutely hated it. I found it so boring. I thought, you have to be an accountant to be a businessman. Well, that's not true at all. There's so much more fun at times. And if someone like myself and other entrepreneurs would have been talking to the students, I'd have been like, oh, that's brilliant. So yeah, there's from that, and I'm also working on something called the Content Launchpad, which is helping businesses and brands get even more out of their Instagrams, their TikToks. Because there's so much content you can create now with your phone. You can edit, you can subtitle, you can do every fancy animation going. People don't realise. So that's kind of where a whistle-stop tour. I'll kind of wrap it up now so we can have a few questions. So I thought a few takeaways from it were, be a risk taker. And by that I don't mean stupid risks. I don't mean go and sell your house and put it all into... But risks can be done calculated. What I always like to think with my risk was, look at the worst case scenario about what can go wrong and kind of bank for that. So one thing we did was that first year I worked in the business was I gave myself a plan for me and my wife. I was going to give this business a year, And if not, I was going to go back into IT. I was going to log out of all the Twitter accounts, go back into IT, even if it had to be contracting, whatever. But I give myself a year, and financially, we made sure I had that funds because I didn't want to be 6 months in and not being able to pay the mortgage. So, and then again, there was models within the business to ensure that I got that bit of freedom for the first few months. So, come on, be resilient. There will be some really, really tough times. And I even mentioned how since post-exit, there's been times where I've felt really fed up and thought, oh, what's the point? Because I'm in a position where I try to be humble, but I'm in a situation where I don't necessarily need to do this. I could invest it all, or I could cash it all in and go live in Lanzarote for the rest of my time, but it's not something I want to do. So kind of going again, and that, but it's a massive part of resiliency. And be ready. And by that is things are changing, like the pandemic came out of nowhere. The day we got advertising, just if you're not ready, and by ready, there's lots of different research you can do by the industry you're in, and being ready as well. Look at what others are doing, and it's not copying their homework, but there's nothing wrong with looking at a competitor and seeing what they're doing, seeing what they're doing well, but see what they're not doing well and do it even better. And then you can be ready. Like say, market trends are a huge one. There's lots of tools out there, and then just be positive. That's probably one of the hardest ones, being positive, because them days that when you get really fed up and you want to throw it all away, then it links in with the resiliency. You've got to think with a positive mindset that you will get there. And the last one I found is don't eat too much KFC. That was something I fell foul to, and it took a while to kind of get back in shape. But no, and then the main thing I just say is just enjoy the ride. That is one thing. Looking back now, I had a few pictures and videos from over the years there, but I didn't document it enough. I've come out now, there's so much more I wish I could have appreciated and enjoyed and looked at. But when you're in that journey, you don't know when it's going to come to an end. You hope it comes to a successful end, but you never know, it might come to an abrupt bad end. But just enjoy it while you're doing it. And as well, by enjoy the ride. If you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? That's another big thing. If your business should be leading in something you enjoy. Like I wouldn't have opened a butcher's because I don't particularly like raw meat. So that's that kind of thing. So just enjoy it and enjoy what you do. And even the days you're fed up thinking, well, you know what? I'm in charge here. It's my business. I'm enjoying it. So kind of my final thoughts now. Yeah, people will say, oh, what am I doing now? Like a few friends have I've not moved house. I've not got a Ferrari. But what I'm doing is say a big forums like this. But what I'm doing is creating a future for my children. So we love going to Tenerife and Lanzarote, so we're going there. After the exit, we had the dream trip to Lapland. Even as adults, I was convinced it was Father Christmas. It was just magical. Allows us to go to our nice restaurants that we have. Because I always joke. One of my friends said to me, "You're taking your kids to these nice restaurants now. God forbid when her first boyfriend asks her to take her to Nando's, and she says where." Because I'm kind of building a life that I need to be careful with. So yeah, need to make sure that they do appreciate it. So I like to end on this saying, it's money can't buy you happiness, but it does bring you a more pleasant form of misery. And what I mean by that is money isn't the be all and end all, but it helps. So yeah, thank you. I've been Ryan Williams, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Cheers. And if anyone wants to, yeah. And I'm quite active on Instagram. If anyone wants to add me, that'll take you straight there, or the name. Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
So can I ask, does anyone have any questions for Ryan whilst we've got him in front of us? If you went back to when you were creating all this content, and I think that was what your passion was for, that's how it started.
Yeah.
What platforms would you focus on now, and what's different now about how you monetize that content?
So TikTok's a really big one still. It's and I've noticed more and more adverts are appearing on that now. I was even watching one the other day, and at the end it said advert 321, which surprised me. Yeah, so that if you're looking to kind of monetize, if you've got a Facebook platform, the advertising is still there. But the problem you've got with that Facebook now is it's very, very hard to grow with the longer form content. But not as TikTok and Instagram never particularly Instagram didn't release the adverts like they thought. But I think what's good for Instagram is what I mentioned about is getting your product and your face out there. If you've got a physical product to sell as well, you can have that within there. Obviously, so yeah, I'd say TikTok if you were looking at kind of because there's things like the Creator Fund and things like that. A lot of live streaming happens on TikTok now where people can donate. Yeah, because I watch a lot of, I don't know why, I watch a lot of bargain videos. Those people who are selling products live on TikTok, and it's like, it's crazy. It's modern day, what's it called? QVC. It's mad. Yeah.
Can I ask another question about
Yeah.
Instagram? Is it, if you don't put ads on, if you don't pay for, your content to, be promoted on Instagram, is it then going to not go anywhere? Do you have to put the ad?
No, there's still organic reach there, and it's one of the courses that I do run is teaching that. But there's certain, it's a lot more on the reels now, and there's a certain way to edit them. There's the tools to find. It's crazy to put the audio and the exact music over it, if that makes sense. Yeah. Sometimes, even if you have the audio like down at one and you can't even hear it, but because the audio's tagged to it, it'll go into the reel. There's all the tools to find out what your different kind of hashtags are there to trending. But no, there's still, especially in the reel function, there's still big organic. And what I think it is with the organic is having something that stands out a little bit. Like, I always joke, like, if my dad come to me tomorrow and said, make me famous on Instagram, you won't stand a chance, because, no disrespect to my dad, he's a typical older guy, not particularly exciting. But if you've already got a product you can feature, or if you're selling something, or you are quite a confident speaker with the correct edits and that, the organic is still there. Yeah. Paid is a big avenue as well, but yeah, the organic's there. Yeah.
I just want to ask, how do you find the right people to sort of build your personal brand? Like, how do you find freelancers or people to make your website?
Yeah, so my website that was been made, actually, it was someone who worked for Unilad within the industry. That was a good connection to have. But with the personal branding, it's been an interesting one, because I've made a mistake with it. When I first exited, I just Googled it like you do, personal branding, and for entrepreneurs I found, and it was a London-based agency, and they looked good, and I bought a package with them and spent a bit, and what came from it was, with it being like a London-based agency, it didn't suit me. It wasn't, because I'm obviously coming out of social media, it was very old-fashioned based. They got me a few articles in like Education Weekly and things like that, but so even though they'll say, oh, we'll grow your personal brand, it's not correct. So it's a really good question. And so then I looked within my industry who was doing it well, and I've a guy called Aaron Branch who was on Dragon's Den last year. I've started to partner with him on a few things, and I was doing a talk down on Wednesday, and Dan, who's filming me today, he actually come from a Facebook ad. So yeah, so when you talk about the advertising, Dan paid, but Dan was aiming at, do you want to grow your personal brand? Do you want to be featured? So there's ways. Yeah. I think with the key question, without sounding like a politician or going on too long, is find out the type of personal brand that you want to build, because the one I went with initially was for almost like Wall Street entrepreneurs, suited and booted. You want to be in Financial Times, and I realised after commissioning the work with them, that wasn't me. I'm a social media guy, so then I worked with someone within my social media industry who was doing his personal branding well, and now I'm making a lot more content that's relevant to who I am. Yeah, and I just think that pretty much, yeah, just look that it's, and ask them, because there's so many people out there, just ask them for examples of personal branding work they've done for other people, because then you'll see if that's the style you want. Because some are very bolshy with it. Some, like, I follow a couple of people on Instagram, they're like shouting like them American motivational speakers. I thought, no, that's not the style I want, So yeah, I think research is a key one, but yeah, and yeah. Yeah.
Is there any points where you've took like a break from posting, but then you've been able to rebuild it, or has that kind of affected the kind of input from people and followers? Has it dropped a lot? Or?
It's a good point, because now I'm creating my own content. That's why I'm actually working with Dan to get a lot of clips like this, and I did a filming session with him yesterday of doing face-to-camera clips, because I got into a space where I'm doing it with my phone, but been busy doing a lot more. Like I say, I've had a couple of days where I've not posted, and I have noticed like the engagement does dip. So consistency is key, and it's something that even myself as an expert, I need to make sure I do. So yeah, there is I do notice a difference. Yeah.
What would you say is like a good consistency for posting?
I think it depends who you speak to, because there's never really, Instagram have never really sent a guide that says these are the rules. Some people swear by posting once a day, some people do twice a day, some people say, oh, I only post once a week as long as it's relevant. So I think using stories is key as well, because it keeps your account active, but I think 3-4 times a week's quite a good one. And even then, going through it as well is what a lot of people, this is what I run through in the course I do with things, is there's the like face to camera talking things or stage stuff. But what people don't realise is people really like even just your behind the scenes, going for a meal clips and stuff like that. People don't realise what they've got on the camera roll to fill out. And yeah, so it's again, or if you don't necessarily want to fill your feed with stuff like that, that's what the stories are for. And it just really adds a face to the brand as well, so to speak. Yeah.
Will you say that is it only posting that will generate more money on social media, or there is a other part of it?
There is lots of part of it. There's my early doors was the crucial point was I kind of was been going through this in my head. It was the timing's key, because especially if what you're posting is relevant, like for example, The Apprentice was on last week. If you was to post that clip around it going out on air, it's going to be a lot more popular than posting it. So timing's within the relevance of your topic, as well as timings like if looking at your analytics, look where your audience are from. If they're all from the UK, you wouldn't be posting at 3 a.m. and then going, why is no one watching my content? Well, because you're posting while everyone's asleep. But if you've got a page that's got a massive Australian audience, for example, you would schedule your stuff to go out there. So it is key. And then, like I said, so the relevance is with the timing and the topic. And like I say, reactionary it was more of a reactionary world for me on Twitter, because, as you know, you can just type it's a bit different, and it's like, same with Threads. You can just keep posting, but when you're planning content a little bit more, I think the timing is key, and like I say, focus it around your audience. Because like I say, if you was, for example, doing an opinion piece on The Apprentice, I use that just because I did one last week. Yes, sorry.
And how will you, what advice can we give to avoid the copyright dilemma problems?
So the copyright is, it's a tough. Avoid using TV clips. TikTok's a little slacker, because they encourage that green screen kind of thing, don't they? Where you're commenting out a video. So, but then there's just been in the news last week with the music on TikTok of like Taylor Swift and Katy Perry like that pulling the music off. So what I was going to say is, in theory, the music that's on these apps should be safe, because that's why it's in there. And the rule of thumb with copyright was always don't have it too long. Like, you know, if you are commenting on a bit, have 2 or 3 seconds of it. If you used a BBC clip, for example, only use a couple of seconds of it. Don't put like the whole 20-minute episode on kind of thing. But having said that, I watched so much on TikTok, so I don't know where the line lies with TikTok's copyright. But yeah, I think because what they call it, when you're doing like social commentary on it, there's a little bit of leeway there, as long as you're not airing the full thing and, like you say, spoiling it for people. Yeah.
Would you say as a business starting out, you'd be better off focusing just on one, like just on Instagram, or try and hit all of them?
Yeah, I think you create your content a specific way, but with Reels and TikToks being so similar, there's posting it at the same time. And what I say with people when they're just starting out, it depends how limited your time is. If you're having success on a particular platform, focus on that, because that's clearly where it's working, and still keep posting on the other platforms. But yeah, if you're doing it alongside other things and you having success, because like with It's Gone Viral was our flagship page, so the pandemic was an example of we had to pull resources off other things, but we made sure we kept on It's Gone Viral because we wouldn't take it away from our biggest success. But like the gaming pages weren't doing well, so yes, I'd say if you're doing like Reels and things like that, but if something's taking a lot of your time, I'd focus on where that you're having the success to keep that growing, because as that gets bigger, you can then focus on the other stuff. Yeah.
What is the best niche you think to get into if you want to start a YouTube channel?
That's an interesting one. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's a tough one. That I don't. It's a good. Yeah, it's a good. Because I say that. Again, it facts it back around to yourself. Something like you're interested in particularly, because you can't run. I don't particularly think accounts run well if someone's running it on something they don't know anything about. So if it's something you're into and you enjoy, then you can make that niche, if you know what I mean. It's a tough one, because that is what a niche is, isn't it? It's something that's not really existing yet. I'd be doing it myself if I knew the exact answer, but it depends where your strengths lie, where your interests lie, and have a look what's out there from what you're doing, and does it exist, or could you do it differently? Yeah, because like I say, when I did that Slow Sports News account, it was, again, I just slipped into a niche. It was, yeah.
Would you say that your success really came from you just being, at that moment you started doing something that nobody else was doing that was quite engaging and different? Because Stephen Bartlett says that in his, he wrote a book called something like Happy Millionaire.
Happy Sexy Millionaire, yeah.
And that's how and in that book he basically says, I think, that the main thing is to just do things differently, because we're all different people, aren't we?
Yeah.
So we all have different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
Do you think that is how it all started, really, was just you being original and
Yeah, there is that, and what a lot of it is like the unrelenting. It was, I think I always say, if I look back, I probably created over 200 Twitter accounts in my time, and probably had 10 successful ones. So there was a massive element of trial and error. Like the amount of times I would make things, and I thought, this is a great idea, and it wouldn't work. So I didn't just make 4 accounts and sail off into the sunset. There's a lot of trial and error. Like they call that A/B testing nowadays, don't they? I think like with Deluded Brendan, the other one, it was called something like Potty Brendan or something like that, and I did the 2 and I retweeted them both, and Deluded Brendan just went like that. So I was like, right, bin the other one. So it was a lot of, there was and that's where the niche thing comes in. I looked at the time, and there was a few people like, I use the example because it was my biggest account, like parodying Brendan Rodgers, but they didn't have that quite name. So someone could say, I had that idea first. It was like, well, you didn't, because I went with this, So it's, I always say, like, it's weird our social media world, because you have Lad Bible and Unilad and companies like that. Their whole model early doors was copying content off each other. That's all it was. It was, you'd see a video on one page, you'd see a video on the next, and it was neck and neck. It was like a boxing match. That's why It's Gone Viral, we started to do similar. That's why I called ourselves the disruptors, because I spoke to, like I said, the guy who designs my website was the head of social at Unilad, and he said, we just used to see this It's Gone Viral name cropping up, and we were all internally going, who are they? Who are these? Like these noisy neighbours, like go away kind of thing. So, yeah, it's interesting. But going back to the original point, is doing things differently. But by that I don't mean it has to be completely left wing. Left field. It can be something that's already going. But like you say, just think, well, I could do that better, or by doing it this way, and yeah. Did you have?
I want to ask about TikTok. How can we generate money from TikTok? I know that if you do live, there are some people they give you some gifts, and those gifts they cost some money.
Yeah.
And it's going by level.
Yeah, so there's donations. I probably need to look into it a little bit more, but the live is a big function, and they are, because I know there was the creator fund created, but a lot of them were moaning it was peanuts. It weren't really making, but. Again, I only saw it the other day. I need to look. They're now putting adverts in between video feeds, and I assume that's linked to big pages, because they want high traffic pages. So, but my advice for things like that is, and what we did with It's Gone Viral, is if you've got, don't look, I'm making this page to make money. Like, make the page to be good, to get views, to get likes and engagement, and then the money side will come. I can't think of many models where someone will wake up and go, right, I'm going to make that to make money. In this industry, should I say, because there's always, but then there's the brand deals. There's massive. I was only explaining to my daughter this morning. She was asking me what influencer marketing was, and I was explaining. She's into a dance. So I was like, if you had a 10,000 followed dance page and they give you an air up bottle, oh yeah. So yeah, because the affiliate marketing is massive from that. You see a lot of the TikTok shop that links with Shopify and stuff like that. So if you've got a product to sell, there's ways to sell the product like that.
Can I ask finally,
Yeah.
When you started up with the other two collaborators, did you need to seek investment to do that, or did you start up pretty much bootstrapping, as we call it, from trading?
It's a good point, that. And someone else said this to me. I need to put it in there. It's good. We didn't take a penny investment until obviously the exit was from investors. But starting up, no, we never took any external investment whatsoever. And we had the model essentially was, because them two were, Matt and Andrew were free, like what you call freelance themselves, so they were looking after themselves. But I had the job, so I said, look, if I step away from this job, I'm going to need some guaranteed income. So we had a bit of a gentleman's agreement that the earnings would pay me, early doors. But again, we got that wrong. I miscalculated PAYE, so I was like 800 quid down on what I was getting from my IT job for months. And not leaving the house, not spending. I was pulling my hair out, going, how have I got less money now from staying at home? And miscalculated. So yeah, that's the little startup errors. But yeah, so no, we didn't take a penny investment. It was all, we had a massive model. We just reinvested everything.
Right. And did you set up as a partnership, or?
It was just a limited company and normal shares. Yeah, just equal shares for the three of us, and then. But yeah, it was, and we had just a model over the years. We reinvested everything. We paid ourselves a salary, but even as directors at the time, it was like a basic salary. It wasn't anywhere near what a director would be on, because we just wanted to reinvest everything to make it a bigger product. And we could have took more and more money at the time, but we wouldn't have grown like we did because we reinvested everything in better staff, better equipment, better offices, and then when the time came, we had this big viable product that was, we would never have been able to sell to the investors if we hadn't have done that early doors. Yeah.
Like you had multiple pages, did you use those as a platform to promote your other pages, or did you keep them like completely separate from each other?
No, we shared a little bit on Facebook, but Facebook were always warning you against cross contamination or whatever you want to call it, the oversharing, and if you overshare on a page, it can damage your main page. So what we always like to, because I say Facebook's changed a little bit now, but it's the same with Twitter, is we just like to give it the odd share when it was starting. And I go back to the testing thing. We had many Facebook pages that never saw light of day, but we'd post a bit of content, want to get 2 likes, want to get 10, so we'd share the one with 10 just once. And once you made it viral itself, it started to grow. So we did use the other platforms, but not heavily because it was frowned upon at the time. The Twitter world was a little bit different because Twitter was, I've talked about the Twitter mafia. Twitter was just, say, 10 odd people with 100 accounts all just kind of retweeting each other. Before Elon got his teeth into it with all the robots.
I think it's not worth bothering with them. X or whatever, Twitter anymore, really.
No, I still use it massively. I use it because I'm a big football fan, so I use it for my football club. And within our small hashtag, I've got over 1,000 followers by accident almost. So again, going back to the niche thing, I think if the community there within Twitter, there's still growth, but I won't give up on Twitter yet because to me he's not bought that company to just let it wilt kind of thing. So I think it'll have its comeback, but because it's Threads as well at Instagram. That's been gone a bit quiet because that was supposed to be the Twitter. So yeah, interesting.
How will you? What do you think if, for example, you got a Twitter account who has not many followers or no followers at all? So how will you be able to grow that, like with the views and?
So yeah, it's relevant to the other platforms. Is you obviously put your relevant hashtags for hopefully people are searching them. Like I said, the organic's a little bit tougher, and what a lot of people do, I know in the sport website world, is
follow big accounts, have them on alert, so the minute they tweet something, is reply to it. So if you've got a video or an article, you're the top reply if you're quick enough, or if you say something quirky enough, and then you can now pay for the blue tick. You know, it's a little bit of an investment, but it's not too much. And being blue tick means you appear better in feeds and things like that. So yeah, I think networks still exist that you can contact to retweet you. You know, but again, it's almost like paid growth at that point, isn't it? But yeah, I think replying to big accounts on alert is a big one. Same with that on like on Instagram. If you can get one of the first top comments on a big follow page, like I even try it with like Stephen Bartlett and things like that, because if I send him a message, I'll say, "Do you remember me in 2012 and you wanted to give me a job?" If he doesn't reply, but yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, as long as no one's got any further questions, I'm sure whilst we're packing away,
Yeah.
Ryan will be happy to have a
Yeah.
quick chat with people. It'd be nice to get a little bit of feedback
Yeah.
for us and
Thanks for listening.